Good technique in weightlifting is crucial to your short and long-term progress. Good technique allows you to express your physical capabilities to the best way you possibly can. It allows you to repeatably and consistently hit weights you should be hitting, and it allows you to make the most use of your strength training that you do outside the snatch and clean and jerk. There is, however, quite a few problems in our way before we can actually have good technique. First of all, we need to know what good technique is supposed to be. Then we need to know how to implement it in our training. And lastly, it's a lot easier said than done just to know what technique is, know what you're supposed to do in training, because as you've probably learned by now, weightlifting is incredibly hard and it's not so easy. The first part of that problem is you didn't grow up in a system where everyone around you knew what good technique was, knew what those coaches preferred, and then everyone understood how to implement it. You've just come into weightlifting probably because of the internet. Now, I'll let you in on a little bit of a secret. Dara and I have been fortunate enough to go to quite a few great weightlifting countries such as Korea, Japan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Romania, Germany, just to name a few. And the most important thing you could probably note from all of those is that all of them have pretty much a standardized technical model that they like to see and a system with how they implement it. What's even more interesting about this is that while there's apparent aesthetic differences between all these technical models, in reality, if you were to take a biomechanical analysis, take some bar speeds and acceleration, all of them with the best technique would look rather similar. What's really different is how they go about their training, some slight differences on some parts of the technique, and then how that system is implemented for these athletes. The real key here is that the system doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be the most biomechanically optimal system for every single lifter. It's just that the system needs to exist and everyone knows how to implement it in the training. For example, one country might fix upper back weakness by doing a ton of rows and accessory work, while another country might go ahead and do a lot of static lifts to try and work on these positions. Both will get the job done efficiently. It just depends on what people prefer, and ultimately, what are you just going to know how to do as soon as you know it's a problem? So how do you start developing a system for your own training? You probably realistically can't go and get a ton of sports scientists, thousands of athletes over tens of years, so you need to start doing something that you can actually do in your own training. The first place I need you to start is I need you to make your current technique as standardized and as consistent as possible. No matter how bad your current technique is, I want you to make that as repeatable every single session as you possibly can. See, the problem is you've almost certainly come into a training session, you've had the last 3 training sessions be amazing, but suddenly you've forgotten how to snatch. You don't know where your legs are, you don't know what your hands are doing, and this is largely because you're not doing the same thing every single session. So what I need you to do, to the best of your knowledge, and understand that this is going to take quite an amount of time, we're talking years, is I need you to start standardizing everything you do in your training to do with your technical model. I need you to standardize how wide your feet stand, how much you turn your toes out, where you're gripping the barbell. I need you to focus on where your hip is, what you're looking at, what your hips and shoulders do and head do as you pull the barbell, what your back is doing when you're at the knee, what your hips are doing and shoulders are doing as you get to the hip, what you're doing with extending, what you're doing with your lower body, what you're doing with your upper body as you turn it over, what you're doing with your arms and your legs and your head in the catch position. Now, this might sound like we're gatekeeping technique and trying to make it more complicated than it actually is, but in reality, as you might have figured out by now, weightlifting is very, very complicated. Any one of these technical pieces could be contributing to you missing those heavier weights. I always say that it usually takes about 8 to 10 years to fully get weightlifting. It took me about 8 years before I truly understood how to snatch, and by that stage, I'd snatched 151 kilos. So back to that standardization of this process. I need you to start standardizing all of these technical pieces, no matter how bad it is for you at the moment, because then we can work from there. If we do different things every single session, we're never going to be able to actually correct what's wrong. Now, let's say, for example, every time you're snatching, things seem to be going pretty well until one day you come into the gym and you're banging the barbell away from you. So when you're doing your extension, the barbell has a lot of horizontal drift here. You're not quite sure why, so you go back and review the videos of good sessions and you review the video of your current session, and lo and behold, you notice something's different. You notice that your upper back is in a different position. You notice that your upper back is more rounded here. Now, you don't need to understand why this is causing you to bang the barbell away. All you need to know is, if I change this back to a better position, will I get the better extension that I was getting before? So this gives you a system to work from, and it's your particular baseline, it's your own particular system, and you know when you fix that, for some reason, that barbell isn't swinging away from you, and for the foreseeable future, you can zone in on that and try and correct it. Now, the thing here is that back position mightn't even be correct. correct. It might not be the best back position that you should be in, but if we don't have a consistent back position and we're always doing different things, we're always dropping below a baseline, and we can't ever possibly hope to actually correct this technical model and improve upon it. So perfect is the enemy of good here. But let's not just stop here with changing technical cues for that upper back. Let's follow this through into a bit more of a complete system. There's a couple of things that we could look at here and see how we could push this system into a more globally productive way of training. You could just decide that, okay, maybe my upper back just wasn't something I was focusing on, but we could try and look at, did something different happen that caused more fatigue? For example, did you try deficit snatch grip deadlifts a couple of days before, and now suddenly your back is more fatigued, and lo and behold, you can't actually lift the weights with this back position because your back is now tired from a new accessory exercise. But let's say you didn't do that. Let's say you've been training as normal, but you've actually gotten to new weights that you've never attempted before, but your back is still rounding. Your back is fresh, but you can't hold that position. Now we might be in a stage where, oh, it looks like my upper back isn't strong enough to hold these new weights. So what do we do here? We look at what is probably the most efficient and effective way of improving my upper back strength while I'm lifting. For some people that might be rows. For other people again, that might be pause at the knee snatch grip deadlifts. It could be any number of things, but we're just trying to systemize and look at how we can fix something in a repeatable manner, so when another problem arises, we can address that in a consistent way. Okay, look, if you've gotten this far and you're thinking, okay, this sounds pretty confusing, in the new year on the Sika Strength app, while of course we'll still be providing programming, still access to us in the chatbot, we'll be introducing technical feedback where you can send in videos each month for the price of your subscription, and Dara and I, or one of the team, will provide you technical feedback. Now, as you progress through training, I want you to be logging your training and preferably keeping videos if at all possible, and taking note of the problems that happen and see if they repeat themselves, because I promise you, you'll almost certainly run into areas that are problems. Sometimes you'll skip a few weights and they'll present themselves again in a later date if you keep progressing. Okay, let's look at some numbers here and see how this might broaden our system a little bit. So let's say you're currently snatching 85 kilos and you're currently squatting 150 kilos. You've tried 90 a couple of times, but you feel that while your back is in a good position off the floor, you just don't have the power in your legs. Let's say you add 15 kilos to your squat and suddenly you're able to snatch 95 kilos. So this is taking you through maybe 10 kilos, which is probably 6 to maybe a year worth of training with this jump on the squat, and it wasn't a problem for a while again. So we've skipped a little bit section, but suddenly we get to 100 kilos and the same problem arises again. Our back isn't the problem here at 100, it comes back to our legs. And so we look, what did I do before to improve my squat? And probably the best thing you need to do again is repeat that process to improve your leg strength. Do what you did in that program and try and improve that and transfer that leg strength to your snatch from the floor, and hopefully this will result in that 100 kilos being conquered. I cannot emphasize this enough. Don't change what worked before. If a particular 12 or 16 week block worked for you before, don't change that until it's guaranteed and you've proven to yourself that it's not working. If whatever worked for your leg strength took you from 150 to 165, there's probably a decent chance that will take you to 175 or 180 again. Now, sometimes this training will become a little bit more complex, a little bit more nuanced, but if you figured out a block, if you used a program, if you ran one of our programs on the Sika Strength app, for example, just do it again. There's no reason to assume that it won't keep working, and I promise you, you need to prove to yourself that it's not working by repeating those blocks again. Because once we have the good principles of weightlifting training and programming down, it looks quite similar regardless of the weights you're lifting. The training for an 80 kilo snatch is essentially the same as training for a 160 kilo snatch, albeit the weights are bigger, harder to lift, and hopefully your technique is a little bit more consistent by the time you're trying to snatch 160. As you progress through training, you'll start to learn what kind of variations and assistance exercise really add to your lifting. For example, for the last 8 years for me, low hang snatches consistently produce the best quality snatch in my training. This might be real, it could be imagined, it could be a physiological capacity, it could be a psychological capacity, it could be a technical capacity, or it could be all of these combined. It doesn't really matter as long as we're getting positive results on our snatch and clean and jerk from the floor. As your system becomes more solid and as you learn how to train better, you learn what things make the difference for you, what really becomes a problem is actually setting up several months or weeks of training in a row where you can get good training done consistently, where you can recover appropriately outside of training, and then that's when you'll see the results. A lot of times you'll know what needs to be done to improve. It's actually setting up the training environment is the real problem. Take me for example, for about 8 months of this year, as of recording this video, I'm finally recovered from a knee injury. Last year I broke my foot in 2 places, so a lot of these times it's not can I progress, it's can I get the right training momentum together to make that progress. I know what needs to be done, it's just getting the opportunity to do it, and so too will your training become like that with enough experience. Now, I want you to imagine this is you. I'm me, or I could be Dara. You're on the Sika Strength app and you're a little baby and something goes wrong with your training. This is what happens. Oh, you missed your lifts. You skipped all of your accessory exercises, because we can look at that in the app. Then we'll advise you and we'll say, don't skip your accessory exercises. And suddenly your snatch position becomes stronger. That's just an example. Now, Dara doesn't curse, but sometimes he wants to. In the new year, we'll be adding video feature where you can send in 2 videos per month with your price of your subscription, so we can look at your technique. Now, if you need more help or you want to watch another weightlifting video, click here for another great weightlifting video.